It's the brand or making a business of your religion before you fully actualized or realize what that means for your independent personal life for me that just sends me out.
If you ain't got it, you can't help your friend do everything. Sometimes it's just friend. I got a prayer for you. I got a good, I'm gonna put you in my thoughts and prayers. That's all I can do for you.
There's something around like this lifestyle content creator who decides to be a little bit messy and then they suddenly go into like their religious rebrand. Yeah, and it's been cooking me lately. I'm tired of this pipeline.
Y'all are amazing people because you're giving her a lot of grace. What I've seen from B. Simone is that she is a pretty terrible person.
Y'all, people in this space though don't know what real friendship is because people are utilizing friends as resources and as a means to an end.
But there's a reason why religion and Christianity, when we say mirrors, it is so obviously man-made. It mirrors a carceral punitive system that we live in real life. You could be good, you go to heaven. You could be bad, you go to hell.
Wait, can you expound on how you said Jesus does not exist as a deity without white supremacy?
I'm happy to do. I'm happy to do that. B. Simone and folks like B. Simone sit within a very long lineage of Christianity and religion at large, being a product of anti-blackness and slavery.
Hello, beautiful Black people.
Hey, friend.
What's up? What's up?
We've already discussed why we're gathered here today. We are here to talk about B. Simone's millionth time she's being canceled for being a shitty friend.
It's just a terrible
It's actually B. Simone clearly makes a business in some degree off of being a bad friend. Because this is like the fourth friendship that I can think of that has come into the popular, it's a discussion piece that you've been this bad of a friend. Like all your friends are like, oh, you suddenly cut me off. You tell your friend, oh, I ain't doing this podcast with you no more. This is a business, not a friendship. But this particular clip that went viral was about her. You know, Antoinette, you give the context that you were giving us before we started, before I played the clip.
48 minutes of it because you had given me a heads up we might be talking about it. I was watching about it. But, you know, the context is that she's sitting down with her girlfriend who she's also in business with right now after the BET Awards. Everything is about her and her spirituality and her battling her flesh. And anything, these are her words, anything that is outside of what God is calling her to do, whether it be drinking, whether it be sex. Right now, she's on a water fast. And so she's just talking about how she's super duper locked in because she wants to be an icon the way that, you know, Tyler Perry was, I think it was BT that Tyler Perry, interesting. But that Tyler Perry was honored the way that Mariah Carey was honored. She's like, I'm an icon. I want to be honored in this way. And really seemingly has a very interesting, I find, distorted vision of what success is, of what God is calling her to do is to like make a lot of money, be the best. And the way that she's going about that is locking into herself. Along the journey, you hear some interesting ways in which she's interacting with some of her friends or not interacting with friends, how she's moved on to certain people, how she's learned that she's been too generous with her time, her money, her energy, and how she's learning how to give it to people that are deserving of it. I'm just trying to set it up without giving an opinion. Yes. And, you know, it's interesting because her friend that is sitting across from her, forgive me, I don't remember sis's name. Shakina. I apologize. Shakina. Oh, oops. Well, sis,
no, it could be that.
Sis was like,
you know what?
But sis was like very charitable, and sis was completely in alignment with B. Simone. She was like, I see you. I honor where you're at. I've been here and I support you. And did not have any of what the public had for her. Like very much held space for her girls. So I just want to make sure that that's super clear. But that's it. That's the setup.
Okay.
I'm done.
Hold fingers, holding space.
We are holding space.
I'm gonna get this clip. Okay.
It's the
No, it's
beyond
only
sweet diet
water.
for me. No carbs.
She's
no
on a
water.
this is
no,
the
no
day
fruit,
10
no
of
meat.
her water
Mind
fast.
you.
Me.
This woman.
Only water.
What
Yeah,
does
she
Really,
said
no.
10
Only
days
water
of
is the only
like
thing
she's
she's
only
consuming for
drinking
10
water?
days.
magnesium, and she's
Girl.
having
That's not
some
healthy, man.
type
not
of
healthy.
salt in her water. And she said God is calling
She's
her
about to
to
have a
do
hospital
this
stay.
because she's supposed to
I
be
don't.
Yeah.
disciplined,
Hospital bills.
and that she was
incoming.
praying about it and asking God, like, am I supposed to stop? I'm
Can
not
I-
feeling too great. And God was like, no, keep going. You're not your flesh. Your flesh doesn't control you. You control your flesh, etc., etc.,
Oh, if you want to jump through a window.
etc.
You know what this actually reminds me of?
How people got Jesus on the main line like that?
Right. Because this actually
He
reminds
respond so quick.
do y'all remember Brittany Renner?
Mhm.
Yes, I
Can't
do.
forget-
Of course.
can't
I
forget.
Brittany Renner, Black China, and every gal before that decided Jesus is a part of my rebrand.
And that's exactly what it's given. There's something
It's
around
common.
like this lifestyle content creator who decides to be a little bit messy, and then they suddenly go into like their religious rebrand. Yeah, and it's been cooking me lately. I'm tired of this
You know,
pipeline because
and
it's
their
a tired
religious
old
rebrand
story.
is
But as a
always
believer-
directly tied towards shaming women
Shaming,
like them.
but-
Like, oh,
Yeah.
the problem, life's problems with that you were a whore is that you were dressed too slutty.
I'm
that you were
fully ready
this,
for her to
that you
become
were
a
that.
Christian.
So,
It's
but no,
funny
y'all,
because-
I don't see anything wrong with the rebrand. If you change your life,
No,
change your life.
you gotta be
But
prepared for
Marquise,
the
hold
pick
on,
me
baby.
pipeline.
If you change your life, you change your life. But the thing is, when you come about doing it like her. Now, the other
Rebecca,
women,
which one of
it's
them do you
questionable.
think changed their
But
life?
see, I love Jesus, and I be in the streets a little bit. So I like to balance it out. But let me tell you, these women, particularly like B. Simone, it's like they utilize it, to validate a lot of their wrongdoing, and that's where my problem is. You see how she will try to. When her friend, and you'll play the clips, but I don't want to give too much away. But when her friend starts to share her hardships, here is B. Simone yelling out, Jesus, and all those other things. But even in her, then that's just, there's nothing else she offers with that. And then she goes on to say, and use it in the biblical context or in the way that somebody Christian who is trying to defend themselves would say. And again, I'm a Christian, whatever. But I can tell these are the people who will just validate their wrongdoing in their friendships and their family, how they're living their life, and so they can get away with it. She keeps on saying to her friend multiple times throughout the video, and we'll see that if we watch enough of it. But she says, well, you're right, but I'm going through things, and this, and for me, and I, and because I am a damn good friend, you need to say that I'm a good friend. Can you say that I'm a good friend? Hold on, before you say that I'm a good friend, I'm going to tell you why I'm a good friend, because this is why I'm a good friend.
I'm going to push back on a little bit of that.
That's much of the conversation.
I'm not trying to give B some bail. The one part where I was a little bit impressed by her was she asked her friend, or her friend asked her, does she think she's a good friend? And she answered, and then she said, well, actually, you're the one that needs to tell me that, because how am I going to answer that? Like, what can I do better? Are there ways in which that I'm like not a good friend? And I was like, oh, okay. So she gets it afterwards. And she even talks about, like, there was a moment where her girlfriend called her and told her about this exciting opportunity, and that she wasn't excited for her at all. And she just was like, oh, okay, great, and hung up. And she said immediately God spoke to her. God, maybe her conscious, spoke to her and was like, you need to call her back. And she said she called her back and was like, I don't know what's on my spirit right now, but I don't like how I responded. That was whack. And so I was like, you know what? There's something
I saw that
there.
clip. Yeah,
I think the thing that makes
she was getting chewed up for that clip.
That's a lot of grace. That's a lot of
people
grace.
were saying, not that I agree. I'm just saying I was seeing a popular sentiment. People were saying that she shouldn't have shared that with a friend. That was her own insecurity to work out, not to.
I think it's really important to be vulnerable with your friends
and
when
that's
you
a lot
do
of
feel
grace.
something. I have friendships like that where, like, and I think that was also her way to acknowledge, hey, that was whack of me. Something's coming up for me that has nothing to do with you. I'm going to hold myself accountable. But the thing that makes me most uncomfortable with not just her, but the general idea of when people do become like saved and when they're like just hella religious is like they sort of often equate their faith and the rewards of their faith with money and with attention and with fame and with accolades and not with service. It's like if God is, if you feel
Prosperity
chosen and you
gospel.
feel
Prosperity
like
gospel.
you are saved and you have a purpose here, then I want to hear what you plan on doing to the community, because in Jesus's light, as far as I understand, I'm not very religious, I'm pretty sure that Jesus was always a giver, was a
He was a
leader,
student.
was someone that was constantly in a position of service to others. In this clip, I didn't really hear her being in service. I heard there's a service that I could make money off of so that I can be an icon and everybody can know who I am, because that's where God is taking me. And I'm like, it's kind of like the golden calf situation. Like you can't have both of these things. It's either you trying to be in service or you just trying to be Pharaoh. And you got to tussle with that a little bit.
And I feel like
I don't think
I feel
that.
like a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people in the Holy Ghost conversion, whether it's through Christianity or Muslimanity, Islam, I feel like,
She said
that wasn't that what Brittany Renner, wasn't that her transformation through her man of her
Yeah.
marriage of 56 days or 52 days, and now the hijab is missing and the afro is, I love the afro, but it's the brand or making a business of your religion before you fully actualized or realize what that means for your independent personal life, for me, that just sends me out. And in the key of Omarosa, Jesus ain't say that. I don't know why, to your point, Antoinette, sorry, I don't know why B. Simone or Brittany Renner or anybody who has these kinds of transformations, I feel like I understand the impetus when there is a lot of, initially they, as young women, they were receiving social rewards and shame from the public for maybe their more licentious presentation or being like a sex symbol or like a IG model, a baddie, right? There were rewards and consequences associated with that. As they move to want to be taken more seriously, maybe in the dating market, or want to adultify their brand, or maybe just be more legitimized, this is the route that they think that they should take, right? A religious route where it's like, Jesus or Allah has wiped away all my sins and now I'm a new woman. Look at me. But I just feel like when it becomes a brand and a business, I always say this, I feel like if Jesus, because I too am a Christian, and I say like, if Jesus had any political ideology, he would be a socialist, maybe a Marxist, but
100%.
certainly not a capitalist. So
100%.
that to me is like, we need to reevaluate whether or not Jesus is calling you to be an icon, because aren't you called to be the salt of the earth? Is it money the root of all evil? Now, I am still trying to get a bag, but I just don't like the brand and the business of the religious piece.
And I think that's interesting because we've seen historically how this has happened. My bad, Dejan. I was going to
go ahead,
real quick. I think historically we've also seen this behavior pattern happen with people in the public eye. So we can look at Donna Summer and seeing how she went from disco to religion as well. Little Richard also did a very similar conversion as well. He kind of overrated a little bit, but we back and forth. People are human. And so I think it is an interesting moment when we think around our public figures who have been in spaces of like, one, hyper visibility, but also existing in this world. And so I do think there is some spaces where people are having their struggle with like religion and also just living life, and what does that mean to also like have the sins of the flesh or whatever they've been talking around. But like I've been really interested on like that pipeline of folks who live this particular kind of life, but then are also thinking around different ways to be saved. I think in a modern context, outside of like a Donna Summer or Little Richard, is also just thinking around like, when I think the uncomfortability for me is witnessing when they did it, it feels like, oh, this is just like Christina Aguilera's like blackface. Like this is just an era for you to go through in order to secure your bag in a different kind of way. And so I become suspicious if they are using religion as a way to increase brand. And I think when I see it in a public spectacle, it feels tainted, because I think of religion as like, and I'm not particularly religious, I'm like a little bit more spiritual and connected with ancestors, but like I'm very intrigued by what does it mean to have or tussle with your religion or your religious practice, make content out of whatever this thing could be, when it wasn't something that we were introduced to you by. And so do we leave space and grace for that kind of transformation? Or is it just like, girl, this is another era that's happening? And so that's me like processing out loud, like, what is the authenticity and like the actual rooted space of this versus especially in a digital media world? Like, is it okay for us to witness this? Because even when Antoinette talked around, like, her friend checking her and being like, hey, you're the person that needs to tell me this thing, and I don't know why I was feeling that. Sometimes we're also
Self-correct.
uncomfortable witnessing other people actually work through, like, oh, this is actually yeah. And I think that's also another piece. So as we're like talking around it, I'm thinking around like the actual human piece, but I'm also thinking around the era of content creation and digital media. What does it look like for us to be able to witness these things out loud? So that's where I'm like processing a little bit.
I think so. What is interesting about this for me is I think these conversations happen a lot, and what I seldom see like included in the conversation is the fact that the church also functions as a business. It is a business, right? Like, and so I am someone who was, just to give context, I was raised in the church. I grew up leading Sunday school and praise and worship and preaching and all things. So very, very, very intimate relationship with the church. I'm no longer a Christian. I actually am not religious at all. Um, so the point that I'm making is that oftentimes what is taught in the church and the church's teachings is what is like sort of leveling or grounding people's conversions or transitions, is that what you are being promised is some sort of prosperity, right? Is that your commitment to God, your commitment to Jesus is supposed to be is supposed to come with a promise of streets paved in gold, right? And white robes, right? And crowns upon your head. That's what you are supposed to be promised. And so a lot of people end up um, their sort of conversions or their like recommitments to God, whatever it might be, oftentimes looks like this business, because the practice of Christianity in many ways is taught as such. It's taught to be a business. Um, and so I think for me, what comes up in these conversations is and what felt sort of funny to me about B. Simone's I guess relationship to this conversation was just that to me, she just felt like every other person I've grown up with who was outside and then decided at one point that like they was not gonna be outside no more, right? And that they was coming home to the Lord. And I just know intimately what that looks like. And I think, like to the point you were just making, that it is difficult being in a position where your entire bag is being an online persona and you are trying to develop a different relationship with who you understand to be your creator, and trying to figure out what it looks like to navigate what is ultimately a business and a personal relationship with what is
Yeah.
also your own particular branding. I think like that's a very complicated position to be in, and not one that I envy at all, particularly because it's just not one that I envy, because it requires you to like to think creatively about something that is just a very age old institution, both like capitalism and religion, and figuring out how you can position yourself in that, to become what she understands to be an icon. And for me, just Antoinette, to your point, Jesus was all about service, right? The Jesus of the Bible was all about service, was about how he could be of service to other people. And my critique, and I'm saying this with my hands up for the Christians on the call, but my critique is that oftentimes what is also true about the Bible is that the Bible, there's an instruction in the Bible for Christians to do greater works than Jesus. But so many people who are Christians, like this institution, has pulled people away from, I think, the teachings of Jesus, and has pushed people into um, a much more religious, a much more hostile, a much more Paul specific teachings, that have removed them from any real like interest in performing like Christ. And so I think a lot of that has to do with how people show up, including B. Simone, and why B. Simone can think that, you know, being on something as unhealthy as a water diet is something that God called her to do in order for her to be able to experience the riches that she came up with by being popular online as a funny person. So
I think,
yeah.
love it, mean it. It's less about Jesus and more about B. Simone. She's making it very personal. In this particular thing, I've watched B. Simone. This is one take. The person that she used to do her podcast with, they both were on the same thing. They tried to make it more religious. B. Simone wanted to make it less religious. She wanted to tie two things in one. Megan ended up leaving and going the religious route, and going full on, you know, Jesus Jr., you know, dedicating her life to God. She went there. And then you got B. Simone, who, you know, wanted to do all the things. She likes to capitalize on moments. B. Simone is an internet thief, content thief. Whatever is hot at the moment, that's what it is. That's my opinion, mine alone. Now, I will say, like, when I was watching it, I got more of B. Simone knows what's going to sell. B. Simone don't give a damn like what people think. If this thing is hot, if it's going to be something that gets people going, gets people in conversation, that's what she is more for. How many eyes I can get on this, how much, you know, attention that can come to this. This is where the coin will be. Even if it brings criticism, that's the least of her worries. Because if it was, she would do better. But in these types of moments, I can guarantee you, she's the one that put those clips out. She watched those clips. She made sure
Did she put those
that was the
clips out?
first
She
clip
picked those
before the
ones?
whole podcast came out. She knew. Yes, she put those clips out her own. The first clip that she put out was the one where she was sitting with her friend and telling her, her friend was telling her, "Man, I was going through some stuff, and you weren't there for me." And she was like, "Jesus!" And she saw all the comments and she told them, "Wait for it to pull up. Wait for it. You guys will see more of it." You know, and the conversation. She knows she's a content creator. This is how she gets off. This is how she makes her money. She capitalizes on that. She capitalizes on what's hot. She also shows up to the women's conference with some booty shorts and just, it's just all, that's what she does. She likes to be, you know, she likes the attention. She knows that. Now, other than that, again, she made sure, and I know that because before this podcast, she dropped the clip of her and the baby in the bedroom, in the bed. You know, she doesn't care. So I don't think it's for her to just be seen like Christ, to be doing as Jesus does. She just does more of what's going to be hot. What's good. And right now, especially in the digital space and social media, as the Haitians call it, social réseau, when you are looking all over social media, what happens is they love for it to be drama. Drama draws people in. They're going to draw the Christians in. They're going to draw the black women in. They're going to draw the black men in. They're going to draw, it's going to bring conversation. And she's okay with that. For her, she doesn't care who's in the crossfire. Her friend got ate up. We built up her friend at the same time. It's everybody's opinions, think pieces. She's okay with that. She came in defense saying, "I'm a damn good friend." Her response to the video underneath, in the comment section was, "I'm actually a really good friend. I give myself so much to people where I'm depleting myself." That was her response in the comment section. So y'all can say what you want, but I know I'm such a good friend. But time and time again, over the years, it's shown, the record reflected, that B. Simone is not a good friend. You know, this is as I run away from the camera like I'm on Maury. B. Simone is not a good friend. You know, Megan has said so. What she did with the passing of the young woman, I forget her name, but what she did with that made it
say
so that people
again?
watch her grieving under a paywall. No good.
I forgot about that.
Yes,
She was charging people. You remember when a friend DC Young Fly's baby mama died? That was one of her best friends. She went and was charging people in her to join her close friends to like watch her grieving journey, like essentially.
Yes, and put it behind a paywall.
That's the God of her understanding. The God of her understanding told her to do that.
Yeah, okay.
It's the capitalist God that she serves.
That's herself.
Not a good person.
And then she went and most recently, of course, it was the Megan Ashley situation. Megan was really trying to be like Jesus. B. Simone wasn't trying to have that. people were leaning more towards Megan. Megan really changed and changed her whole platform to just that, right? Jesus only. I was at her conference in August. It was good. So I can see where the change has come. She's a totally different person. But she said that she didn't even like losing her friendship with B. Simone, but it had to happen because B. Simone literally pulled up to the podcast. Y'all seen it and said, I just don't want to be your friend anymore. Megan's sitting there like, why? In tears. I love you. I would love to, on a People podcast for the world to see. B. Simone said, I don't really have anything to say much to it. I already said what I said. Don't want to be your friend anymore. Don't want to do this with you anymore. And that was that. So the girl had to find her way. Multiple women who were in that friendship group when B. Simone had put out a couple of months ago, because it happened in the year of our Lord and Savior 2025 on Threads. It wasn't on X. Threads just came out. So this happened and went viral on Threads, where her friends that were in that friend group had to call her out because B. Simone was doing the same thing she was doing in that podcast. She made a post and said, my old friends used to watch me smoke weed and never said nothing about it. My old friends used to watch me drink and never said nothing about it. They liked me as that. And the old friends are ones that said, we didn't even smoke. You used to be the one to smoke.
Oh, snap.
And so we're tired. We never said anything about this. We know Megan isn't saying anything about this any longer. She's moved on, but you keep pulling us into this conversation. And now we're going to be the ones to speak out. And they all were like saying that underneath B. Simone's post herself and said, we were not those type of friends to you. It was you that was putting that on. We weren't trying to drink with you. We weren't trying to do those activities with you. That was you. And of course, she never addressed those things. She just keeps on moving on. The attention gives her money. She thrives from the attention. B. Simone, I can't say that she ain't saved. Again, I told you I'm in the streets and I love the Lord. Everybody do what they need to do. Jesus is my savior. But at the same time, and I think that the
Rebecca, I
conversation needs
appreciate
to
the
be less
lore.
about her trying to be centering God in this and more about just, I think, how her friend was trying to call her out. Because even in Antoinette, when she looked back at her friend and said, well, let me know if I'm a good friend, or, even tried to hold herself accountable in that moment before she can even get there. Her friend, when she asked her friend, was she a good friend? Her friend took a while trying to find moments of her being a good friend to finally get to a story that didn't even reflect B. Simone being a good friend. And it was more so, maybe you need someone.
I hear you.
And then
I think the context was important to me because the clips that everybody's responding to are very short clips within this episode that's titled, I'm Going Through a Spiritual Battle. Mm-hmm. And so even the context that you're providing is hella important because to me, I'm like, oh, okay. Now I'm seeing that, okay, maybe this isn't a vulnerable space where sis is wanting to change and wanting everybody to see her in this change. Maybe it's just, you just want everybody to see you and you're a marketing genius. And so you're going to put the most controversial clips out, which I know a ton of podcasters have teams that do that and they do it themselves. And they're like, I get paid for people to hate me too. Put it out. So.
As a resident super skeptic on the panel, I think a lot of y'all are amazing people because you're giving her a lot of grace. What I've seen from B. Simone is that she is a pretty terrible person. I think the track record reflects that pretty clearly. And I do a lot of covers of scammers and grifters, and there's patterns and people who put Christianity on like a cape to protect them from criticism. Justified criticism is a very common thread. I think she's using this to, a lot of you have made this point, so I'm not acting like it's novel, but she's definitely using this to deflect criticism, but more so, I don't think she knows what the next era of her career is supposed to be. Like, I think she's in this weird kind of middle spot where you got known for being messy and loud and everything else, right? Which is, I'm not really putting my judgment in that basket. It is what it is. We all got to get the bag, right? But the way we choose that's a subjective thing. But she's done it, and as to her own admission, the bag is not there anymore. And so she's in this transitionary period where she's trying to find what that next step looks like. And I think we're watching a creator, and granted, the creator economy is still relatively new. So we're watching somebody who blew up in this specific part of that creator economy wave flounder in their middle section. And it's creating these moments where she's airing personal business on podcasts that should be handled behind closed doors. And I think it's an interesting just character study of somebody who has profited from this kind of mess forever and kind of watching it unravel in real time, if that makes sense.
I think that
also,
go ahead.
Sorry, I wanted to respond to something that a couple of you said. Well, firstly, I think Deshaun, that like the church is a business, and I think obviously that's true. But Jesus is not a business, right?
No.
Jesus is this. To some people, Jesus is God. To other people, Jesus is just another deity that folks have made up. But Jesus has become is commodified, right? Like the church is intended to be like a community resource, a business, or like a community center that provides resources, spiritual, sometimes transportation, sometimes different economic opportunities. Think of it akin to like a Boys and the Girls Club, like community centers, only specifically they have a specific religious ideology. I don't appreciate the grift. And this is why I say like your religious journey is your own. I understand that she's navigating the dichotomy of being a creator who's been a comedian, and a big part of her podcasting journey is, I guess, trying to figure out what it means to be a young person, a young adult, a young woman navigating life, friendship, religion, etc. But I just think it's really irresponsible if you really, because also, I mean, to be a Christian is like, or to be any person of any religious faith, or just a human being, is to be flawed, right? And so I would never assert that someone shouldn't be flawed and also exclaim that they are this thing. I just don't appreciate making it a core tenet of your brand and profiting off of Christianity, because it's just antithetical to the ethos of Christ, to the ethos of the religious ideology. It doesn't make sense to me. So I will absolutely, and also I want to say this too about like, because I'm like, why is everybody up in arms about this lady's friendship? She's just some comedian who obviously is not the best friend. She's willing to say, I've not been the best friend. Friends are a resource, right? And I think that we're existing in a time where folks are searching for resources in whatever capacity that shows up, whether that's capital. Obviously, we're living through a recession. I also feel like just social media makes friendships difficult. I think people are looking for third spaces, and we're talking about like how people don't feel like there are third spaces for them to go to. There's also been conversations on TikTok happening all the time about how people just don't feel the same sense of commitment to show up for their friends. I don't know if you guys saw that TikTok where this girl was like, oh, I had a baby shower and like 7 of my best friends all didn't show up and they didn't let me know till the day of. And I feel like there's something to be said about our changing relationships to community. So when we see someone be neglectful to, or just not show up for their friend, when we feel like we're operating at a community deficit, I think we all feel we can resonate with that. Like, why wouldn't you, as a person who has friendships or capital or money in excess, right, to see your friend be homeless, or what did she say? She had to go without food, shelter, healthcare, right? And so if you have capital and money in abundance, sister, support your friend, help out your friend. I get what B. Simone was also saying about how she's been the person that's given in her friendship so much, and she doesn't want to be used, she doesn't want to be abused. I respect that, right? You have to know when to draw the line, because you're not the bank, right? But I don't know. I think I just think that there's something there. I don't like the grifting of any religious practice. I think that's individual. But also, this start and stop made me lose my train of thought. So somebody else.
I think you've named something. Oh, go ahead, Olay. I haven't heard you yet. Forget it.
It's so hard to talk about religion, and in particular Christianity, because so many people, especially Black people, believe deeply in religion and in Christianity and have so much reverence for it, and in their so much reverence for it, which so it's so hard, because you're expected, people will be personally offended. And I think it's the implicit reverence that is expected to be had for Christianity going into like it, that's what seeps through even the outrage. Like, so many people are offended at the idea of like, oh, you're using religion in this way. You're using religion in order to justify your actions in order to, because you're right, people use religion as, people come to religion, especially in moments like this in their life, because they find religion to be unimpeachable. You can't question that. If religion is my justification for why I'm doing this, you can't question it. And people find that offensive, but that is what religion fundamentally is, because religion, let me tell you, it's so hard because people so deeply believe in something that they absolutely 1000% factually cannot make anything more true than any other school of thought. And I said it to say, let me be clear about this. When you say to people that religion is a school of thought, or religion is a man-made, or Christianity is a man-made school of thought, people think that you're saying that there is no value there, that you cannot believe in it. No, that's not what I'm saying. I believe in lots. I believe in abolition. I don't believe Jesus created abolition, but I don't need Jesus to create. You know what I'm saying? I believe, and you could believe in socialism. You could believe in all kinds of schools of thought and things that have a lot of value in them and find the value in it. But the reason religion is a school of thought that says God ordained me, Jesus did this, X, Y, Z to make it like unimpeachable, so you can't question. And there's a reason why it's like, you're supposed to, because it's been everybody feels so deeply about it, you're so connected to it because it's a body of life and your generation and everybody's super religious. You're not supposed to see it as a school of thought that peddles a bunch of shit. Like, that's my thing, is the reason why conservative propaganda, so many bad things, it comes on the end of so many terrible justifications, is because it's a school of thought that peddles it. and that just is, people can't, the minute you say that, people start foaming in the mouth, oh, your God, my God, your Jesus, da-da-da-da-da, and start, okay, babes, okay, babes, and okay. And I said it to say, when I see it for what religion is inherently, and why so many people even believe in religion, is because it's the idea that I'm gonna go to hell. This is what's gonna happen. There's a consequence. There is a or else connotation to it, right? So there is a certain level of there's a baked in judgment. There's a baked in sense of this is how we're operating this way because there's a consequence to actions. It builds in this judgment system. And I said that to say, in the same way that it's not a coincidence that people, they pick up religion and they decide they're really Christian. And what that you always means, in every example that we have listed, it is a harsh condemnation. And not only just a harsh condemnation and judgment of who one used to be or anybody similarly situated, but it's also argued as the reason, me being this person, me being this unchristian person, me being this XYZ, this sinner, is the reason for this bad thing or X or bad. That's why. And so it brings about a bitch that's online shitting on her friends and blaming everybody and seeing if you pick up a school of thought that says, yeah, I'm bad. I was a sinner. And thus these people around me were sinners. And that's why they was like this. And I'm that. Like, yeah, people start getting turned into judgy pieces of shit. And there's a reason for it. It's a judgy code. I'm so sorry to say, but it's like, it's interesting. I know everybody can shoot me with their big gun, and I'm so sorry. I know, like, I'm so sorry. But there's a reason why religion and Christianity, when we say mirrors, it is so obviously man-made. It mirrors a carceral, punitive system that we live in real life. You could be good, you go to heaven. You could be bad, you go to hell. So, you know what I mean? You serve this record. Like, I don't see how we don't see those parallels. I don't know. I don't know.
I agree with you.
I think it's also
not alone.
I think that
You just opened up a can of worms, though.
I'm so sorry. You're sorry I didn't talk for 20-something. I didn't talk for like 30 minutes.
Real quick, though, I think that it's just, under the song that says it's not about us, but it's about Jesus. In this case, it's not about Jesus. It's about B. Simone. Here's the thing. I don't want us to focus about this being so religious because...
Well, I always want to. I never want to talk about the celebrity. B. Simone doesn't matter to me.
B. Simone is but this is so less about... She tried to frame it that way, but let's be clear. This was nothing about Jesus. She took this episode in the way that... Because she sat with Megan, Ashley.
I know, but what I'm saying is B. Simone is women. There are women all over right now. I have women I know right now, friends that come to mind that get to a certain age in their life where they believe, because you're being, again, the overlap between conservative like propaganda and Christianity, right there, the map where you believe you were supposed to have a husband, you were supposed to be children, you were supposed to be doing this, you're supposed to be whatever, and you get to a place where you don't have that. Yeah. And the way that you rationalize it is, I will be to that prosperity gossip. I will be rewarded if I become this.
Those things are 100% true,
Olay. So what? Okay.
And I agree with it. No, I agree with it 100%. But in this particular case, B. Simone's a f***ed up friend. She's trying to use.
I know, Rebecca, but I'm not. But I'm saying women do that I don't want to talk. Okay, you go. I'm just saying.
The only reason why I want to mention this is because B. Simone used this moment with her being a fucked up friend. She tried to, in my opinion, deflect with faith only in this particular moment. Her friend is the one that.
I know that was my larger point, is that gals, they use Christianity to deflect that's what religion is.
I agree with it. I'm not pushing back on that. I actually agree with it. But I feel like in this conversation, it mostly how B. Simone wanted to reflect it, how she wanted it to go. That's why she labeled and named the episode what she named it. Literally, it's just your up friend. Like, you can try to Jesus your way out of this. It's not going to work. It's not going to. Her friend is actually the more Christian representative on the show, and she talked about Christ less in the conversation. You got B. Simone here, who is she uses it as an invisible cloak, right? This Jesus, and what I'm going through and all of this, and then she centers,
which is how religion is used every day. That's my point.
Right.
And in and of itself, it is like, my thing about it is, religion is it's a performance, like a certain level. I am now, I'm a dress different, I'm a talk different, I'm a move differently throughout the world, and now I am changed.
But
it's
she's only doing that for this particular. What I'm saying is, because just the previous episode she did, it wasn't that. Just the other places that she went, it wasn't that. Just in like literally the days before, how she was carrying herself, it wasn't that. But in this particular moment for this particular episode, she knows who she's trying to gear towards. B. Simone's whole persona is not, I'm shifting to Jesus. In moments where she tries to use it because it sounds good, it plays good, it feels good. But other than that, her whole thing is not that. She's going to be in the next episode cursing it up, talking about this, talking about that, sex, the other thing, and that's it. She's just trying to act like she's changed her life. She's better than, she's this.
But that's my thing, is like, I'm not trying to judge her by the tenets of Christianity. This is what I'm saying. It's like, what happens is, when these discussions happen, is everybody starts trying to pick apart how Christian Blac Chyna really is. Is it real? They start like, oh, is Brittany Renner really Muslim? Is B. Simone really this? And I'm saying, I don't care. I don't care to put Christianity on this like pedestal of reverence in and of itself, of whether or not you're walking along with this, because I think it is just a conservative school of thought that has been propaganda. You know what I mean? It's been ordained as this unimpeachable thing by tying it to Jesus. What I'm saying is, I think there's a certain amount of, people call the disingenuousness in the performance of people like B. Simone, whatever have you. But what I'm saying is, there's an inherent, I don't think that it's, yes, B. Simone is a part of a creator economy. The reality is, the way we're going to thumbnail this video, why we choosing to talk about this, and all of these different things has everything to do with this creative economy. Like, that's what it is. You want eyes on it. You're trying to make a living. You do whether or not you have a particular kind of politic and you try to incorporate that into how you do your platform and how responsible you could be, is another thing. But we're all creators in a creator economy. So I'm not inherently vilifying the gal for that. I also think there's a difference. To what Antoinette was saying is, there's a difference between this little clip and this larger conversation. What I'm saying is, I don't inherently think, it seems like, oh yeah, this is so full of shit because look how these people pick this stuff up or whatever when it's convenient to justify this, whatever. But I'm saying, I guess I think of religion, and if you think about Christianity and these stuff like schools of thought, they are picking it up in the way that gals decide, okay, I didn't get a husband, that approach didn't work, so let me try this. Now I could do the 90-day. I'm not gonna have sex. I'm not gonna this. I'm a diet. I'm a this. I'm all these different things, because I think this means that is how people operate. It's like women are operating every day, but and we don't see the problem in that until it's Christianity is the school of thought. Now I'm trying to perform in hopes to get this to this end goal. But that is what all these kinds of things is. What I guess what I'm saying is, like, yes, it comes across like she's disingenuous to us, but what I'm saying is, I don't think she in her mind is like, I'm this wicked gal, I know I doing this or whatever. That is the way that people jump in and out of performances and schools of thought and new things that they think will make them do better, to a different means to an end, to make them more desirable or whatever have you.
It's the lack of the lack of a central base of morality, values. I think, and just values. Yeah, right. Having a code. It comes down to having a code. Like, I try not to like high horse and preach down at people, but like, one thing that my parents put in me was having a code. There's things you don't do to people and with people, and there's things that fit your value system. That's an individual thing. It's subjective. I'm not really here to judge anybody else's ethic, but you have to have one, and she does not seem to have one. It's not just her either. Like, this creator economy you're speaking of, it's full of people who don't have one. And I'm always trying to responsibly call these people out and, with cited sources and everything, point out everything that they're saying that's wrong, all the misinformation. But even outside of that, outside of the educational grifters I'm talking about, people like her, it's fine to be an entertainer. It's fine to make your name on all the things that I would consider messy or that I don't personally watch. Do your thing, like I said before. But like when you don't have this central ethic that runs through your decisions that you live your life by, it will always show up. And it's,
Mhm.
in my opinion, she's not gonna course correct. It's gonna get worse. But that's just my take.
Well, this is where I was like that. I'm making a similar point to James. I was like, I think it's interesting because she is we can use her as the example of like, oh, when you have a fleeting politic or if you have a fleeting morality, then it's going to change based off of any context that you place yourself in, right? And I've been thinking around it a little bit more because even if we connect it to the idea of the location of the church, which for me, I'm just like, oh, for me, when my family's from the South, so like there was an idea of mutual aid that was happening in these moments, right? So there's a values thing that can happen there. There's an action behind that to demonstrate I value community in this way. When I think around like my politic is sometimes just an extension of how I think around treating my friends. There's a consideration, there's transparency, communication, there's honesty, there's accountability and affirmation that should all exist within this space. That's what I believe what a friendship should look like, right? And I think when we get into all these and I know it's like a lot of connecting thoughts, but I'm like from the church and mutual aid, from when we think around how people respond to what a friend should be or how I should do this, the same clip that happened with Issa Rae saying I'm not a considerate friend, the same clip of her showing up not being this friend. I was just talking around on my podcast like I think people need a course on how to make adult friends and know how to sustain them. And that resonated with so many people of like, yo, I need this too. And so I think when we think around all of that within like the context of this digital media era, people are seeking connection, people are seeking meaning and don't know where to find it, which is why the grifters tend to win in these spaces, because at least there's A plus B equals C kind of moment. That's why your fitness gurus who drip a little alt-right content in they stuff too are winning. The manospheres people are attracting certain people because there's at least feels like there's a pipeline that makes sense that people feel that are accessible. And so we realize we're in a space where like people are struggling to figure out like, what do I value and why do I value this? I teach this kind of stuff. Like, yo, why do you value this thing? Can we actually talk about it? And where does this sense come from? So in some spaces, it actually kind of makes me a little sad to kind of witness like so many people don't know how to navigate what a dynamic with a friendship looks like, but also just relationships personally and or to their own God and whatever spirituality and whatever that looks like.
I also think
Good.
B. Simone, to me, to try to give her to criticize her while trying to give her as much of the benefit of the doubt as a person who does not know her. She is a content creator, so it feels like weird comment. You know what I mean? Like, to be as graceful as I possibly can, to be as charitable and look at the light the most favorable to her from what I've seen. It feels to me like the issue is less about how to be a friend and how you classify your friendships. It has felt to me throughout B. Simone's many scandals, like every gal she meets, she start calling her best friend. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody is her best friend who she don't even rate like that. That's what it seems to me because, and that combined with the reality of smoke and mirrors, I think the point of B. Simone responding, you see her responding to her friend. I said the later clips are talking about how I'm broke. I've been going through this, or I'm, not that I'm broke, but now I have to shop this. I'm going through financial struggles. I think what that does is serve to counteract what she's quietly saying when you read between the lines is, what I'm putting out to the public that I am this millionaire and all of this is not true, which is not surprising to me as a creator. Anyway, I'm like, most people are not, the visibility that they have, the amount of follower amount and they have is not money. You know what I mean? What they say and what part of the brand or whatever is not money. And I don't know. It's easy to say, I don't like to jump in. I feel anxious about it because I don't know what that gal does with her money. Like in the sense of with my life, right? Like me and CJ, we both have families. I'm sure we all come from families where you have tons of people in your family who are not doing how you're doing. You're not rich, you're not whatever, but even if you're financially stable, I'm sure you know a bunch of people immediately around you that are not. Like I give money all the time to this family member, this immediate friend, this whatever have you. By the time I couldn't, depending on what the classifications are, my friends, like, I don't know how close you really are to these people. It doesn't sound particularly close to me, you know, based on what this is describing. If my friend from high school that I love, but I don't talk to her once every 3 years or something, was like, I don't know, I don't know how close you are with these people. I don't know what you have left, like, to financially support them. So it's like everybody, the conversation that's being had is, this gal is a millionaire and her friend down bad or whatever, and her best friend is down bad and she not helping. But I'm like, I don't know how much money that gal really has.
But
I don't know.
We to be honest. People are broke in the creator economy. It is hard to make money in these spaces.
Bro.
We should have found that out when the Hollywood strikes were happening and we were realizing.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that gal have what you think she have. And that don't mean she can't still be being a fucked person. This could very well be her best friend in the world, and she could be being a piece of shit. I don't know that. I just saying I'd be hesitant over where people, it'd be seeming like, it'd be seeming like where people think the minute somebody gets money, like they have money to be able to lift everybody they know out of poverty. You know what I mean? Being able to help your friend and give your friend some money is very different than your friend. That gal sounded like she was going through a series of unfortunate events. Like every motherfucker, like every motherfucking thing. Like
not a series of unfortunate events.
Any of those things. I actually was the one on the other side of it. You shouldn't have to. For me, when I saw that, I'm like, okay, if you ain't got it, you can't help your friend do everything. Sometimes it's just, friend, I got a prayer for you. I got a good, like, I'm going to put you in my thoughts and prayers. That's all I can do for you. Sometimes it is that way. You don't have to be like, we know that, like you were saying, we got family members. You take care of them. You got responsibilities of your own. Everybody can't be in your pockets for whatever the reason. It was more so about, you know, and the friend didn't even make it an issue. The conversation was, I had a hard problem, you know. Anyway, you know, I had a difficulty with watching you do that. Then, but I had to realize I had to go through that season to learn for myself, learn where I was making the mistakes, learn like how to get myself up out of there and do better. You know, she took accountability for that. You know, so I was okay with that part of the conversation. It was just that there's a history with B. Simone in the public.
No, I think she's a shitty. No. I think she's a shitty friend. I think listen, I'm fair. I'm addressing the charges right now. I can't do double jeopardy. She's been convicted for all that other shit. We know she's a bad friend and all that. Yes, I just meant.
But it's like
when somebody has,
I also can't judge her relationship with God either. Like I said, mine, to a lot of people, they're like, oh, how you love God, but you be doing this, you be doing that, whatever. I can't say where her relationship with God is, because God loves everybody. Your relationship with God is whatever that is. However, it's just constant. Oh, I'm echoing too. Time and time again, it's just like how she is okay with representing herself in the space just as a friend, and then the excuses, and she tries to validate it with, you know, this with faith, like how she treats her friends in the public eye. And if there was a friendship breakup here, I wouldn't be shocked, because a lot of the relationships that she's had on podcasts or in the public eye in this way have resulted in friendship breakup for the exact same reasons. It's just this whole thing about, even in how she answered to the public, it was like, instead of just going in and saying, you know, me and my friend, we understand each other in this way, it was more so, I'm a good friend. I do this. I did this on July such and such. I did this on this day. I'm taking so much out of me out of this.
But Rebecca,
I know a lot of people like that.
I actually want to answer for Herbie talk, and then I have a question.
I just wanted there to be, I think the more important and more interesting conversation is the branding of religiosity, or the gross misuse of religiosity. I think like B. Simone is like, again, some girl, like shout out to her. Maybe she is a good friend, maybe she's not. I really don't care. But what I do think the more interesting conversations that are happening are about the fact that adult friendships are very hard, and about how religiosity is used, and commercialized. You know what I'm saying? I say this all the time too, because I would never judge how someone shows up as a Christian. I'm literally homosexual, and I say that, you know, I love God, you don't love God, what's wrong with you? But that's because my approach to the Bible is, I believe in order for you to be a good Christian, you have to cherry pick the Bible. I mean, I'm also a Black person whose ancestors have experienced antebellum slavery here in America, slavery in Haiti, and slavery in Jamaica, right? And I understand that the Bible condones slavery. Don't argue with me, argue with the book of Leviticus. And so therefore, when I don't agree with the misogynistic sentiments in the Bible, I don't agree with the homophobic sentiments in the Bible, but that's because my moral compass is guided by what I believe speaks to the character of the God of my understanding. And when people start to use this same, first of all, the Bible has been used to do a lot of horrible things. And I also think it's particularly nefarious to be commercializing your commitment to Christ at a time when we see a rise in Christian nationalism. Is it that suspicious? Is it that funny? Not that this institution hasn't been used historically to do, really deleterious things and not just profit off a podcast. But this is just one example of how folks will use an institution, a text to do harm. And there are degrees, certainly, to that harm. And again, I'm not really so much having a conversation about B. Simone. I'm having a conversation about how I believe your religious belief is your own. The same way that I don't allow my religious belief or my spiritual belief to inform how I vote, my politics, who I form friendships with, right? And I agree with, because I think it's my belief, right? And I don't make decisions about how other people are to be governed, or make decisions about other people's moral compass based off of how I govern my own life and my own spirituality. But also, to Olay's point, like, the Christian faith and Christianity is a conservative institution that is largely performative and incredibly harmful. And so I think that when folks like B. Simone are saying, like, it's because of God that I'm chasing the bag, you know what? Maybe. And this is something I grapple with all the time, not to make it too deep or too hefty of a conversation, but I think that, like, since the conversation has leaned itself into a more, how does religion and specifically Christianity play a role in capitalism and other harmful, I guess, ways about how people navigate life, I do think this is something that everybody should be asking themselves, what role their religious belief plays in how they understand people. And obviously, like I said, it's no secret, like I said, that I'm a queer person. And so I just think that a lot of people use this to ostracize or...
You're queer?
Girl, the cat's out the bag. Let's have a coming out party. No, but I mean, I do feel like I have an emotional response when I see people just weaponize their faith. Like, just go, like, not go do your Christian thing on your own time. Like, I feel like totally, like, if that's something you want to talk about, do it. But it's just certain things are antithetical. And the last point that I'm gonna make is about adult friendships being difficult. Like, I feel like they're hard to sustain. And again, this is the point I was trying to make earlier about how friendships are a resource. Adult friendships are difficult to sustain, right? You make friends in high school and you see them every single day for 8 hours a day. Maybe y'all ride the bus home together, right? So our understanding of friendships typically are in an academic setting where we see people a quarter of our life up until we graduate. And then in adult friendships, you see people but once and twice a year. So when we look into these examples of friendships we see in the media crumble, it reflects our own insecurities about how our friendships have crumbled. And I think that that's why everybody's so tied to this idea that she's a bad friend, when honestly, I think I will give her, like, to her credit, I'll say that, like, she was being honest about, like, yeah, you know what, I should have shown up better here. And I've had so many or a couple of friendships deteriorate where it's like people don't want to take onus or accountability over how they are playing a role in the destruction of this friendship. And that's because niggas got other shit to worry about.
I'm gonna lose my platform.
Y'all, people in this space, though, a lot of people don't know what real friendship is, because people are utilizing friends as resources and as a means to an end. I have a dear friend who is an incredible content creator. Like, she is very wealthy off of this work, and she had a weird exchange with me in the beginning, because one, I didn't really know who she was, and two, I didn't want nothing from her, and she couldn't figure out how to navigate me. And what I was realizing when I met her so-called friends was that they weren't actual friends. Every single person in her life was a means to an end. Every single person, there was some sort of business exchange where this person's in my life for this person, and there was nothing authentic about it. And so when you are, one, capitalism does this, right? Because we're always in this survival mode and this mode of, like, I gotta grind, I gotta hustle. So your life then shapes in that kind of way, where even the people around you are solely there for that purpose and not for enrichment of your actual soul and your actual being. And, like, spiritual health and growth. And so even now we're friends and she and I are very different. But the fact that like she will say to me, I love you so much because you legitimately don't want anything from me. We don't have any business together. You just check on me. And it makes me sad that there are people, or so many people that I know out there who don't have people in their lives like that. And she's actually cool with B Simone. And she said that this is how it is. She's cool with B Simone because there was business there and they were friends. I'm like, do you talk to her? Is that your friend? So I think that it's not only just adult relationships are hard, it's that all of these relationships are, it's just an exchange.
So
It's
then that
not
just
rooted in anything
I
real.
just want to clarify what I mean by resources, because I think what you said was powerful. When I just, last thing, 30 seconds on a total shot clock on. I feel like communication is a resource. Like having a shoulder to cry on is a resource because a lot of people don't have it, right? Emotional support is a resource.
Yeah.
Having somebody when you like, oh, I just want to go out and talk about this, how this nigga ain't shit, that's a resource. I don't necessarily mean transactional. And I'm not saying that's what you were insinuating by what I said, but I just wanted to clarify it because I really appreciated what you said.
Yeah,
but I wanted to add context.
No, I understand.
To respond to something Herbie said, you said you really don't appreciate people, weaponizing their faith. I guess in my mind, when I see people weaponizing Christianity, I see them using it as it was intended. Like that's that. I mean, I don't know what to say without people rioting.
Okay,
but Christianity was like.
Hey,
I think organized religion can be tricky.
I'm gonna hop in
general.
I'm gonna hop in because I feel like that's a really important point. And that's the point I've been trying to make, and haven't had the chance to. But
go, Deshaun.
Christianity creates the conditions for the grift, and I think that is the point that's being missed, right? Like I hear you, Herbie, when you say that like Christianity is a business, but Jesus is not. And I disagree, right? Because the reality is that the conditions under which Jesus becomes more than just a historical figure is through capitalism. And so the very foundation of Jesus being a possibility is by way of being a business, right? And so the reason for why B Simone or anyone like a B Simone can become or is allowed to be an influencer who then has this sort of public awakening or this public shift, even if, to Rebecca's point, even if only in one episode, is precisely because of the fact that the church creates those conditions, right? The only reason why she's able to do that is because the church is a product of capitalism. And by extension, Jesus, as more than just a historical figure, is a product of capitalism. And so for me, when we have these conversations, it becomes a bigger discussion because folks, there, to the point that Olay was making, folks like to have this sort of conversation where they are making distinctions that, like, as if B Simone is different from the pastor of somebody's church, right? And she isn't. The pastor of somebody's church functions as a grifter in the same way that B Simone or another influencer functions as a grifter because of the conditions, the container that is created for that to happen. That is what Christianity is and does, right? And so for me, like, when we start talking about religiosity or religion being used as something to make money off of, I am like, that is quite literally the foundation of religion, right? And people have these conversations where they're like, well, the church, I'm also from the South, the church has been used as a way to move mutual aid and to support communities and blah blah blah. The church as an institution has not functioned like that since the 60s, right? And it is true that there are some churches around the world that move like that, individually, but the church as a whole has not functioned that way since the 60s.
It's not about the faith, it's about the function.
Precisely, exactly that.
Come on,
exactly
somebody.
that. And so
I almost took off and shouted.
So for me, when having these conversations, I just think that it's important to be clear that B Simone and folks like B Simone sit within a very long lineage of the church being, or Christianity and religion at large being a product of anti-Blackness and slavery, and that because it is a byproduct of making people products, making people capital, everything about what the church and therefore by extension Christians do is going to be in some way about capitalizing off of or making money off of their faith. That is, I mean, to my earlier point, that is quite literally what is promised. When you are a Christian and when you live right, quote unquote, you get to experience streets paved in gold and a mansion that Christ has stored up for you, right? Like that is quite literally what is promised to you as a Christian. And so B. Simone to me is just another example of exactly what the church has always done, just on a wider scale, because she is in this content creator economy.
1,000%.
So that's what I think.
Well,
really
so
gets
wait.
into it a little bit. Can I jump in? Sorry.
Do your big one. After you're done, cool. I do want to respond to what you said, Deshaun.
Yeah, so I actually really like that point, because I think around, me and my homie talk about it a lot, is like the responsibility of the creator, right? Especially as we were thinking around, as you made those points around like religion and what does it mean to be a pastor and have to lead a group of folks and stuff like that. Especially for us as content creators, I think we get sadly stuck into a similar boat, right? Like, and more so of like, there are people who believe what we talk around, they follow our set of values. They're like, yo, I like Keith because he's an abolitionist, he really believes in a certain politic, blah, 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 blah. And so there's an expectation on how I show up, because my audience is also technically like a little bit of a product capital, if we want to talk around it in that sense. And so it becomes like the ethics of like, what does that mean for us in this space? And is it saying, do we position B. Simone as a cautionary tale, or is she just a product of economic anxiety, right? And you're just kind of trying to keep your bag as much as possible. I think both things can also be very true, because we're just responding to the conditions that we live in. But I think around this a lot as we are engaging in this conversation, because I think so many folks, and it's something I was trying to allude to earlier, is looking for how to live life in a particular kind of way. Some people have the Bible. Some people are looking at lifestyle influencers and saying, this is what an aspiration can look like. And so how do I get there? And so some folks are having to keep up this identity because that's what keeps their bag secured. And that's what their audience is ultimately going to continue to look for. And so I think a little bit more around like the ethics of, and it's something brand new, like being a content creator and like what that actually speaks to feels fundamentally different, and those ideas are consistently changing around. And so
all right,
go ahead.
I'm gonna let you talk, Herbie. I swear I'm gonna let you talk because I know you want to respond to this.
Yeah,
I guess this is something that I struggle with as somebody that is anti-police, and I was thinking about this when I put out my Illuminati production on the 7 deadly sins of Black politicians. I don't think it makes sense. There's not a reason why you can do whatever we want to do, but it doesn't logically really follow that we expect individual Black people's version of being responsible to be not upholding things that we fully accept the majority of Black people dabbling in and upholding in. And I say that to say, like, there is a general level of unwillingness to challenge Christianity in the Black community and religion. They're just you could get a room full of that know everything, and we will tap dancing because everybody have their relationship and X. I swear to God, I really because listen. At the end of the day, like what I'm saying is, the fact that I feel like you cannot say the sky is blue, grass is green, like to what Herbie was saying and Deshaun was saying why I say Christianity is a weapon formed against us. Like that's what it is. It was given to us as a means of keeping us in order, of keeping us in line. It's the reason why, so that you feel like, there are people. I literally was just reading this. I stayed up all last night reading. I was just reading about the commitment that so many, even like Africans and people who were enslaved were convinced by this school of thought that's meant to civilize you, that teaches you that you were inferior, that you needed Christianity, that you were done a favor by giving this religion. And I was reading about this like Haitian revolutionary poet that would write and celebrate like Toussaint and the revolution and all of this, and in the same breath still love France, still want to be like, call Haiti the Black France, and want to revere France, and that inability to like take that out, to like that desire to want to maintain some of that and be like, I'm gonna critique it some, but I'll try and tweak it, I'll read it from this way. And I'm like, why are we so unwilling? Why are we so desperate to hold on to Christianity? Because not for nothing, I'm not saying, like I said, it's a school of thought. I'm not saying that it's not valuable. I'm not saying that
To Antoinette's point, it's social pressure
Because
and
that's the identity.
But also,
folks don't.
because we're
It's
also
when you rip somebody away from the root and they are struggling to figure out where they belong, what they belong to. You're gonna go back to what you can remember, and sadly, that's why it was so effective. I mean, you go to I'm in Ghana and I'm in Elmina Castle, and you've got the walls are stained of up to my shoulders of blood of all kinds of shit, and right on top of that dungeon is the church.
No, I know.
I mean, it's
but
also,
we were challenged.
like,
So what I'm saying is, even on the side
people
of
for it, but I'm saying, but you're asking why is it so hard?
No, not even why is it so hard for everybody. No. I don't even mean, I know why it's so hard for everybody to let go of it. Collective. But what I mean is, it's hard for to let go of capitalism. It's hard for to let go of a million things. And we stand on the side of the aisle of people that are willing to condemn, to call it in question, and suggest that we should let go of things. We do that for everything. But what I'm saying is, even on our side of things, it is hard for us to even want to broach like we don't even want to put it into the hey. You know what I mean? We don't have no problem saying capitalism bad. You know what I mean? Presidential government bad, we should let it go. But when we get to talking about religion and Christianity,
it's because people on this side of the aisle, we're still very committed to anti-blackness. Like our commitment to anti-blackness and our outright hatred for not for slavery, but for our ancestors who lived through slavery, keeps us committed to that level of like desire to be Christian.
The ability to hold two things at once. Like, you can love Jesus very much and understand that religion, the actual function of it, can be harmful. You can love Jesus and say, you know what, the way that I came to Jesus and that my ancestors came to Jesus wasn't the best thing.
I actually think that's kind of the problem.
Well, okay,
there's nuance there, y'all.
I think, so I don't think my philosophy on religion or Christianity specifically is the most intellectually perfect. As it is, or like the afterlife, spirituality, all these things are unknowable because we can't die, come back and test the theories, right? And I think that speaks to some of the hold that it has on so many Black folks, because the proverbial or the imagined consequences are something, it's like a theory you can't test. And it's like when you try to when you say, okay, what do I stand to lose by sacrificing this belief? Oh, eternal life and burning in hell, if this is what people believe. I don't necessarily believe in the construction of hell. But yes, it's like there's so much that you sacrifice now and in this supposed afterlife. And so it's like you're like, what if I'm just doing process of elimination, or like I'm just trying to do comparative analysis, this seems safer for me. But what I wanted to speak to is how is to Deshaun's point. I don't know, am I echoing? It doesn't matter. What I wanted to speak to was Deshaun's point earlier. Wait, Rebecca, could you? Yeah, I thought sister, I knew it was my Haitian sister. So I wanted to speak to this point of like Christianity is what was the point? Christianity is something, but Jesus is not. I forgot what you initially said, but I know I had a. What did you say?
You said Christianity is a business, but Jesus is not.
Yeah.
Yes, this right. Okay, so religion as a construct exists as a system of domination and control. That we will not argue, and I will not pretend that I can philosophize my way or therapize my way out of the emotional and psychological constraints or incarceration that this religion, from growing up, from birth up until I was 21 and went to college, the limitations that this religion has on me. I will not pretend that, but I'm a very I try to engage with theology and all this other stuff to have a better understanding and have a better morality and a better politic. I'll say this: I still stand on this idea of Christianity being a business and Jesus not being so, because or Jesus not being a capitalist, because you mentioned that like the church is engaging in capitalism, but capitalism is one economic system. I said earlier that I think that if there was an economic system or a politic that Jesus would subscribe to, I think it would be socialism, a much different economic system. Not that there isn't money to be coming in. I just think that it would be community governed as opposed to a private group of people above everyone else. Now, what the church does as a religious structure and as a religious institution is separate from what Jesus does. As an analogy, I think about, if we think about just like like natural resources and what capitalism does to natural resources. Water should not be exploited. Apples, fruit should not be exploited. Oil should not be exploited. But under imperialist capitalist regimes, those natural resources are exploited. So if I was to equate in this analogy Jesus to this, like the apple, the oil, the water is objective. It's a capitalist regime that comes in and makes this an exploitative context. So Jesus exists as a number of things to a number of different people. And a lot of times, historically, Christianity has served to, marginalize, dehumanize, rape, genocide entire groups of people. And capitalism is the impetus for that harmful behavior. But Jesus as a deity, not as Christianity as a construct in the Bible. Like I said, in order for you to be a good Christian, I believe you have to cherry pick the Bible because of the pro-slavery sentiments, the misogyny, the homophobia, etc. And also, I understand that stands on intellectually flawed grounds. But I think that a lot of people do see that this is much like art or anything that exists, is something that can be and has been exploited, or media, something that has been exploited, but it may be in and of itself. I'm just going to stick to Jesus. I don't necessarily think that Jesus is in and of himself as a deity a capitalist or something
But
that's
the idea of
Jesus is you can't divorce
Jesus
from
being a deity is
Well,
he is
Christianity.
Christianity's deity.
We
Right.
always
No,
divorce religion from spirituality. People say I'm not necessarily
well,
religious.
I've been inherently saying that people have been full of shit. That's what I've been saying.
Yes, and that's fact. But
Because
Like,
religion,
that's what I'm saying, is they're full of shit.
And
Because they want to maintain.
Agreed, but here, Herbie,
religion is a practice. Religion is a practice that religion is a practice. So, I mean, yeah, the religion is a practice. First of all, I chew, my sister is a devout Christian. My mom is a devout Christian. I chew them up all day a night because they're like, they believe in biblical inerrancy and that there's nothing wrong with the Bible. And I think that book is incredibly flawed. But what I'll say is there is a separation to be made because it's to assert that there can't be nuance within any text, not just religious text. And I think that a person can say, oh, I think that the idea of the characteristics of this deity I can subscribe to, but the rules in terms of the performative nature of how you dress, how you're supposed to, like, people start wearing skirts that sweep the floor. I think that's more of a religious performance than it is spiritual interpretation.
We attribute to Jesus, or why we could keep Jesus, is that we believe Jesus would be a socialist, Jesus would be those things. All of those things exist. All of those things are good schools of thought that we could believe in, independent of this religion of like. Rebecca, I'll let you talk.
Even so the Jesus of the Bible, if you break him down, it is separate from the idea that a lot of these white Christians took, and even what they teach is not specifically in the Bible. How they describe Jesus, not the same. A lot of the things that they take in the Bible, little parts of the Bible, they don't go through its full chapters or whatever. There are things in the Bible that I don't agree with. There are pastors who speak I don't agree with. I just called out one of the biggest pastors ever right now, who I believe is making all the money or whatever off of darker whatevers. But I called him out in a video. Lots of Christians came at me about that. I'm not afraid to do that because I see that they're using Jesus and faith as a shield for them, and they're using Bible verses to cover them, all kinds of things. I'm not afraid to push back. I always say I got Jesus for myself. I left the church, found Jesus for myself. Some people don't think that the way that I go about it is right. Other religions, to me, have their God or however they serve, and a lot of the practices may be problematic or are centered in some way that have misogyny or whatever the case may be. Other than that, what somebody believes, I don't think is the issue. How I believe in Jesus, people are going to say it's not biblical. I've been told that such and such a time because I consider myself a Christian. They might say that I'm, a modern Christian, or I try to modernize things. I go beyond the Old Testament and I'm trying to focus on the New Testament. However, Jesus in the Bible, for me, and what I've read and what I study, as a practicing Christian now, is not how, to me, I always push back on people every day. My own sister, like you, Herbie, my own sister and mother, very devout, very, it has to be this. Their takes on Israel is problematic. I check them every day. I even use Bible verses against them about Israel. I can go in the Bible and show them, the difference between what they're saying and what I'm, and what I'm picking up. So those things happen all the time. I think in this, I'm not disagreeing with the fact that Christians and the idea of Christianity and religion, I always say, I'm not religious. I have a relationship with God. I would never force my beliefs on somebody. I would never tell somebody that they're going to go burn or they're going to go whatever because of what I believe in or however. I don't believe in those things. And the teachings that I get from the Bible tell me not to go do that, you know, and those types of things. But I do believe that people will weaponize, just like they weaponize anything that they will worship, believe in, or however. They will
I'm not
weaponize
disputing.
it.
I'm not disputing that there are lots of, like, everybody has their own different individual relationship with how they're going about. That's honestly kind of what I'm inherently saying is a general argument of Christianity was given to us by our oppressors to oppress us. We know that. We've had it so long. We are so invested in it. We are so entrenched in it that no matter that the fact that we have that information, people will know that and then start twisting themselves into knots to to find out how they can keep it. I need Jesus still. I need this. I read it differently. I do this. I do that. I do this. I do that. At the end of the day, your oppressor gave it to you to oppress you. You know that, but we're invested. That's only my general argument.
100%.
Yeah, and I actually think like this is an interesting conversation, like at this point in time, because I also just want to kind of connect it, especially for some of our listeners who are just like, there's a lot of different competing ideas that are going on right now, but also kind of contextualize it on like the journey to abolition, right? Like if that's your subscribed politic, think around our journey on how we got there. And again, that's not a popular politic around a lot of people. However, it is also a space where any of us who subscribe to that politic, we all had to do a lot of unlearning. We all had to question a lot of things, and we all had to uproot our species. As the internet was talking around, is like we had to pull at the root in order to kind of be like, dang, I might got a little bit of a phobia or ism in me, and I got to figure out how I've internalized this thing. And so when we are talking around this situation, we're actually thinking around like the tension of unlearning, right? And again, we've actually kind of alluded to it a couple times throughout this episode, is what we witnessed in like you having to process like, oh, I had to quickly check myself. I had to self-correct. I had to do this thing. All of these things continue to happen. And so, yes, as we can talk around religion, being a content creator, if we're talking about B. Simone, whatever the case may be, as we are going through this process of unlearning, a lot of folks are so tied to religion. A lot of folks are tied to this idea because I actually don't know I don't have a guide on the other thing. We talk around reimagination all the time. And so the tension that listeners or even us on this panel may be talking around is like, dog, what comes next? Y'all told me it was supposed to be like this. I should have a reward on the other side. I'm not getting that reward that I was told I was supposed to get. And now that we have to kind of situate life in a completely different way, now I actually have to sit there and be like, dang, capitalism's not working for me. But these are also the same people who will actively be like, yo, I really do think we should have affordable housing in New York. Yet these are some of the same people who might vote for Cuomo all over again, right? Because they don't know anything different. And they be cooking me.
Bro, whack.
Get them. Again. Get them one more time. But it really does. It's actually very intriguing to me because I think we have conversation with our parents all the time. They don't know. Some of them don't know. Some of them don't know why you agree with what you agree with. But when you ask them like, hey, do you want affordable housing? Do you believe that abortion is healthcare? Do you believe this? Do you believe this? They'll probably fundamentally be like, oh yeah, like I actually do agree with these values and I actually do this, I do this. But because of this all feeling very brand new to them in terms of like, what does this look like in a political sense? What does this look like in a movement sense? What does this look like here? They're like, but nah, I'm gonna just go back to what I know because I at least know how to exist in these conditions. And so for our audience who is actually reckoning with this right now and seeing like the different ideas and being like, no, it's this, the discourse that happened on this episode specifically, that's what the tension is as we are trying to get folks to continue to unlearn. And as we are watching people like go through this. So take yourself through those steps of like, hey, when I had to unlearn this, how can I reteach myself or at least be open to being curious around what this is moving forward. So I'm always like curious when we do this, but making sure like our audience kind of understands like this is a gradual process. I was not out the womb as an abolitionist. We had to like unlearn so many of these things. And so I really hope that a lot of folks see how we can, the tension that exists, the ethics that exist, but also how you can unlearn and start that process.
I look at the Bible like I look at the Constitution, like a living, I see it the same way.
I do too.
That's exactly. I swear y'all laughing, but I'm so dead ass. Like,
not the Constitution. I feel like, okay, wait.
So I want golden rule. You can take
what's the
things, we
difference?
can interpret it, we can analyze
What's
it,
the
you can
difference?
know
We
it.
love the golden rule.
Yeah.
We love the
share
golden rule.
skill,
I
but
feel
we
like
celebrate Robin
well,
Hood.
Here's what I'll say about this, because I feel like this is such a weird position for me to be on this side of the argument, because I was just
I love it.
whacking
Go
myself-
ahead, shock people.
No, I was just whacking myself last night because I'm like, girl, you believe that God is good. Now, there's the one thing to say that I believe that this thing exists. It's another thing to say that I'm like, we are in a good relationship, because I'm like, oh, you believe that God is good and that he would have people suffer infinitely for a finite life and finite crimes. Make it make sense, right? So I'm always whacking Christians. The fact that I'm here on this side of the argument is crazy. But here's what I'll say, and I think this is very honest and vulnerable. I just don't have the I would induce, first of all, I'm pro-ho, pro-gay, pro-Palestine, bitch, I'm pro all the things.
Pro-human.
Right? Pro-human,
Yeah.
thank you.
Religion
and
very
so-
anti a whole lot of human.
I was gonna say, and sometimes that's antithetical specifically to Christianity and the Christian faith, as it's been presented to us, and honestly, as it exists in the Bible. I just told y'all the Bible told those people to go into those foreign nations and take them as cattle and pass them down to their kids. That's in the book. And so, but here's what I'll also be very honest about. I don't have the emotional wherewithal or the psychological capacity to, we always talk about reimagination, unlearning, etc. I don't know what that means in a day-to-day life. I don't know what it would look like for me emotionally to say, I don't believe in God. Bitch, I don't even believe me when I said that. And even if I try to commit to this idea that one second, if I tried to commit to this idea that I don't believe in God, the fear and anxiety that would induce, not that anyone is pushing me to be atheist, I'm just presenting an argument. The fear that would be induced in me around, like, literally, I was at church Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Monday night prayer. So as a kid, all the way, up till high school. So the kind of indoctrination, as much as I want, this is the same way we talk about we are forever unlearning white supremacy and anti-blackness, etc. As much as I want to be like, oh girl, that God, I don't like him, and so therefore I'm unsubscribing. Thank you. Don't send any further emails. The reality is, I would be up until I get on my deathbed constantly negotiating what that means, because the consequence is something that is eternal. For me, it's like playing Jeopardy or Russian roulette. And so I think that that's something that really needs to be introduced, because that's what millions of people feel like when they're like, why don't you just give up this thing that was passed down to us by the people who wanted to enslave us? It's like, girl, but when you think about the imagined consequence, it's a very, very difficult decision.
And
to
I'll
make.
tell you that. The imagined consequence by a
Totally.
nigga who was alive, who has no ability to tell you what would happen after. Like, I think, let me just make sure I state this, like, bias up front, and that it's very easy to tell to let go of something you're not OD into. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't eat grapes, like, throw away the grapes. Not to say, like, I was raised in the Bahamas. The Bahamas is constitutionally Christian. Not to say, like, I'm somebody, I'm going to really, like, I don't know nothing about Christianity, so get rid of it. No, here's my problem with religion in general, but in particular, let me talk about Christianity, is I just don't think it has shit to do with morality or being a good person. I'm from a constitutionally Christian place where everybody is Christian. And they're ass, okay? A lot of people are. In fact, let me be honest. Like, I hate the way you're not allowed to say certain things when it comes to religion, but it's like 9.9 times out of 10, if somebody is very Christian or very religious, I'm not going to be able to stand them. I'm going to find them to be a fundamentally sickening person in terms of what they believe. And we would recognize that when I say I don't want shit to do with any conservative, any Republican. I don't want to talk to them. Similarly, anybody who is practicing the shit by the letter of the law, believing that is going to believe some fucked up shit. And that tells me in and of itself what's really cracking over there. And I said it to say, I think the frustrating thing that I have about, it's like, yeah, I get it. I completely agree. Herbie, you're right. Though we have to address that. That's what people believe. They believe they're going to go to hell. But I think that's the thing that I find so frustrating about religion over how every other school of thought is this extra added thing by taking what is a school of thought that could have merit that's just man-made or whatever, but holding a gun to people's head, essentially, like, you have to, or otherwise it's this consequence. And you have been like it's a psychological oppression to have people who have no ability. They do not know what happens after they die. They don't know. I don't know. You don't know. It doesn't matter how nice they say it, how good of a speaker they are, how ordained by God they tell you, what church they lead. They do not know. But you believe this thing like at gunpoint, and that's the thing that I find frustrating. And also just my, like, while I'm in the, the Christians gonna eat me up and chew me up and whatever. Like, I'm already there, so I might as well say the other things that I would say. I also think it's funny, like, the Bible in and of itself, like, Jesus, listen, God is carrying on bad in the Bible in a way that I find funny and appreciative. You know what I mean? This idea that only what is God like we're all made in God's image, but what is God like is only the best of the qualities and stuff. Like, okay, like I'm like, are you reading these stories? If we analyze these stories, if we analyze the Bible the same way that we analyze the book we read in English class, we analyze TV or whatever, and not with a certain level of reverence, or you like these are the predisposition, like these are the positions that you have to take, and so now you have to see it in the way that like conforms to that. Right? I'm like, okay, like we start the world, we create two, they break the rule once, condemn everybody else on like the world and become like, okay, like none of these things. I'm just saying, it's just like there's just so much inherent blindness. It's like ostrich in the sand, willful blindness. Like that's what you. It always is funny to me how people who believe in religion will like talk about cults and all these other things and yada yada yada, and don't see how you in the same level, like you standing in the same sand. Like I believe in this at gunpoint. I got to do this. I could die, go to hell. Let me believe all this stuff. That's XYZ. But everybody, I understand.
That's a limitation. That's a limitation of PTSD.
Anton and Rebecca, don't kill me. I love you.
That's a limitation of PTSD. I feel like, because like if you experience something that's incredibly traumatic, and you feel that the trauma, I agree with you. None of these have died and came back and can tell you the thing, but that's not the way the stories are told, and that's not the way you're indoctrinated. It's not that simple, right? There's a much more complex process of indoctrination, and so there is a post-traumatic stress disorder that follows you right after you leave the church, and you're like, I've literally developed anxiety, like diagnosed anxiety from when I got my first boyfriend in college, because I was like, oh my God, I'm madly in love with this man. Now, what does that mean for me? Right? Like, and so that is a limitation of post-traumatic stress, like PTSD. You cannot but it is a very difficult thing to do, to surrender this idea, because that's just not the way that it's, as I said 1,000 times, it's a limitation of the PTSD.
1,000%, and I think it's true in a lot of different things. I was talking to Deshaun the other day about like internalized fat phobia and how hard that is to let go of a politic of like beauty and like, oh, you want to be pretty and all these different stuff. And to me, I wish we thought about religion, you know what I mean, in the same way we think of like our investment in certain like schools of thought a little bit, you know what I mean? Like there was like this effort. There was a more communal effort to divorce from it, the way that we feel like we have to help. To what Marquise was saying, we know that abolition is a process. We know that you don't just overnight. We know this, we know that, we know this. I just wish there was more of a like, you know, I was talking to Zoran Mamdani, and I asked him, you know, about the NYPD, like how he plans to deal with that and all that bullshit. And he was like, I'm going to treat them like every other department, instead of this separate. And that's kind of how I wish religion and Christianity were dealt with. Like the same way we are talking about other schools of thought, other different things we're indoctrinated to believe in as something we like, you know, we can recognize as bad and start working on divorcing from, rather than I feel like we always work to try to save, like, which is similar to like the difference between like reform and abolition. It's like working to save. How can I save what I can from it, rather than actually trying to remove and divorce ourselves from it? I guess that's what I'm saying.
God, I am like, thank you. like that exact point, like that is the point. Is like, the thing that frustrates me about these types of conversations, not this conversation in particular, but I'm low-key a theologian. So I'll be in these conversations a lot. And I live for that. Love that. So I sit in these conversations a lot. And the thing that frustrates me about the conversations is that people refuse to acknowledge Christianity specifically. Like we keep using religion, which is important, but Christianity specifically as a mode of domination. Like Christian dominance, Christian supremacy is a direct result of anti-blackness, anti-black slavery, chattel slavery. Like we don't get Christianity.
Global dominance.
It's precisely like, and so for me, it's frustrating because it's like, oh, you know, like you just said, Olay, we can understand that, you know, racism, let's just use that word, racism it's bad, right? And why is racism bad? Because of white supremacy. Christian dominance, Christianity is a direct result of white supremacy. There is no Christian dominance. There is no Christian religion as something for people to follow. Jesus does not become a deity without white supremacy, without Christian dominance. And so for me, when we have these conversations where we say, oh no, I'm not, and this is quite literally one of my, like, it's foundational to my critique of Black liberation theology. It's the foundation of my critique of womanism. It's the foundation of my critique of queer Christian theology. It's like, it is doing this work of reforming a very, very specifically violent institution. Christianity has been violent since Constantine. We have not seen a Christianity that is liberatory since Constantine. We have not seen a Christianity that has not actively worked against people, Black people in particular, since Constantine. And so for me, it's like, and really before then, but specifically with Constantine. And so for me, it's like, if we want to have this conversation about Christianity and about, you know, who is and isn't, for, if you call yourself a Christian, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I have.
Can you expound on? Wait, can you expound on how you said Jesus does not exist as a deity without white supremacy?
I'm happy to do. I'm happy to do that. And I'm kind of like, I'm in this space where, like Olay said, at this point, the Christians are gonna chew me up, so I don't really care what I say. Like, I'll be trying to, like, you know, bite my tongue, but I don't really care.
Maybe not though. Maybe there's
babes,
open hearts.
They're gonna eat us up.
Listen to me, I'm trying.
We're gonna kill them
Be
all.
more like Jesus.
Everybody, and they're not gonna distinguish between. It's
Be
gonna
more
be
like
all
Jesus.
of us.
Jesus would have listened.
You're right.
They're gonna say, "Thank God for that." The rest of you motherfuckers going to hell.
Antoinette, you are not wrong.
The top comment is going to say, "Thank God that Rebecca was here to lead us to make sure we don't stray too far from God's life."
I'm literally leaving this conversation. Be more like Jesus, because I don't think Jesus would have wanted to be this icon either. Now, Jesus just wanted to serve.
You're right. No, Anthony,
anyway,
you are not wrong.
Ahead.
You are not wrong at all. But I know how Christian dogma is. But yeah, I'm happy to explain that. So for me, what is true of Christianity is that Christianity as a religion, as the religion that is used to control, and in many ways to tranquilize enslaved folks, it comes online through the transatlantic slave trade, right? Through this very big, long, extensive history that we have with Christianity. Jesus becomes someone who is then understood as a deity, as the God of Black people. Let's just be clear. Like, he becomes the God of Black people in a particular way through slavery, through the way that it's quite literally whipped into our being. It is whipped into who we are and how we understand the world. That's how Jesus comes online as a deity. And so for me, when I talk about that, I think of this in the same way that if I'm, which I do not do anymore, I don't do this, but if I'm having a conversation with a white person about why whiteness is bad, I'm not sitting there with that white person and allowing them to say, oh, you know, I know that whiteness as an institution is bad, but I just really I hold on to certain parts about this because it's important to me, and it's no, whiteness is bad, and therefore go ahead.
But Jesus exists before white supremacy has to exist in the context of, like, race. Black people have to exist, right? And Jesus exists before race exists as we understand it in the American context. And you're talking about it as an explanation for chattel slavery. So he predates white supremacy. I do think that white people were being supremacist, but white supremacy, as we understand
Jesus exists as a
How do you think we got Jesus?
Not a deity.
Jesus
does not
wasn't
exist
a deity.
as a deity.
How did we get Jesus? How did we as Black people, like, even when we keep talking about, like, all through this conversation, Jesus, how much we love Jesus, why we got to save Jesus. How did we get Jesus? Is Jesus the deity of the religion? Like,
the conversation is,
how did we get Jesus? How did we get Christianity?
But that's not the point that I'm debating. Yeah, I'm absolutely not debating that. You said that Jesus exists as a deity, or white supremacy. In some way, I forget the specific terminology you use, but the people who are watching this now can rewind it back to see specifically what he said, and you understand the point that I'm making. I'm not arguing that white supremacy begets the Jesus that we as Black people understand. I'm just saying that Jesus predates white supremacy in the context of the slavery and Black people engaging with it at all, or race as we understand it, because the Bible was first mass produced in 1950 in Germany. So it's like, this predates the transatlantic slave trade, or it in the context of race, or race as it's understood in the West.
Was Jesus known
I
as
guess
a
I don't really understand
supernatural
the point
being?
in her being.
I'm asking, was Jesus known as a supernatural being before slavery, before the transatlantic?
Jesus
in a
was
Western context.
yes,
in a Western
Yes,
context,
absolutely.
no, he was not. So that's what I'm arguing, is that the Jesus that we are following, that creates this sort of Christian dominance, comes through slavery. Like, that's what I'm arguing. I recognize that I know that there are people who are going to say, well, in Ethiopia, that Christianity stole Jesus as an Ethiopian deity, and all these things, right? I recognize that historical fact. What I'm saying is that Christianity, as a culmination of spiritual beliefs, comes on, like, Christianity is quite literally a culmination of spiritual beliefs from around the world that comes online as a singular idea or singular ideology that then produces Jesus as this Christian deity that enslaved folks must follow. That is how we get introduced to Jesus as a deity.
Yeah, that's how we get introduced. But you said that Jesus as a deity doesn't exist without white supremacy, and that's just not true. Like, there were many people.
I think no, you're taking no. With Deshaun, Deshaun is not saying that. You're thinking of, not in the literal sense, like what Jesus is to us, what Jesus is to us, what Jesus is to Black people does not exist without white supremacy. What it's not being out to be, not that Jesus themselves, but what Jesus is for us, for our purposes, does not exist without white supremacy.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Well, I think that the point is that there's a link specifically to Jesus and white supremacy, as if it has always been the case. And I definitely think that there's always been the case of domination on the part of white people, but white supremacy specifically is a race-based term where white people are superior to the other races, but it's like Black people didn't exist. So in the context of how we understand Blackness today, so that sentiment doesn't. Well, when? Right? Like, so this is becoming a historical argument, and I will concede.
Yeah, to wrap it up, I agree with everything everyone has said. There's no disagreeing there, except for the fact that I'm just going to end it how, for me, this is not me trying to flip it, dip it, baptize it, and make it something else. It's just not. I'm not trying to reverse it. I'm literally just, everybody can believe what they want to believe. I take it how I take it. I literally use the Bible to fight off a lot of the things that Christians tell me, and they'll be like, oh yeah, you need to do this. And I will spit it back to them as like, no, the Bible says X, Y, and Z. I'm going to love this person. I support this person. The Bible literally to me is, for me, how I read it, in my, like you were saying, it's art, how I interpret it. It ain't the way my mama interprets it. I'm not trying to change Christianity. People might say that I'm not even Christian, like I said this before. However, when it comes to Jesus and how I see Jesus and how he's represented in the Bible, it's not the way that people try to weaponize him. I wouldn't use him in that way. I actually use it in such a different way. The same way other people in other religions may use whatever. But I do agree with what you were saying, Deshaun, that Christianity itself is what's mostly used to weaponize a lot of different things. People use it to abuse. People use it to attack. People use it for all those different things. And I agree with that. But at the end of the day, like, when we're centering this whole thing about how Christianity shouldn't exist, or when it did exist, I know that it existed from way before Europeans had brought it over. But again, that's another argument. I'm not a historian. I may be strong and wrong if I try to center this point in those things. But, as for me in my house, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. But at the same time, I will be the one in the room that sounds crazy, because at the same time, like, I'll tell somebody, love the gays, Jesus loved them too. That people got a problem with that. I'll tell somebody that what's happening in Palestine biblically should not be happening. People will try to I just look at it in such a different way. I want to use it like humans should be protected. The Jesus that I serve believes that all humans, people, things of that sort should be protected. And I would never use the Bible as a cloak for me to do wrong, and for me to disrespect people, and for me to validate how I'm disrespecting my friends, my family, or whatever. I think all of those things are wrong. agreed with what you said, Olay. Even if we do not agree on this, I don't look at you crazy. You know, when you met me, I love the Lord. You know, when you met me, that I be in the streets. Love to be at the club. Love all those things. But it doesn't make you love. It doesn't make you love you less from your standpoint. It doesn't make you love you less. We don't have to be in the same thought process.
To me, it's the conundrum of the progressive prosecutor, who I know personally. It's all my friends. Anytime anybody tells you that they're going to be a good prosecutor, to be a good prosecutor is to not do the job, is to try their best to try to skirt the actual rules of it. Like, hey, how can I buck the system? How can I do some progressive shit that's going to get me fired? That's going to get me hemmed up? Because the institution that you're actually trying to be a part of is not good. Like, it does not, the things that you consider doing that good is to not do the rules. And it's like, whenever, in order to be a good Christian, guys, is to fight against the majority of them. As the majority of the rules, how can I find a way to let me try to make this more inclusive? Let me try to make it this. Let me try to make it that. And I'm not faulting anybody or anything like that. I'm not like, I don't care. I'm not one of those, I don't care. Everybody can do what they want. I don't think this shit is real anyway. I like, in the sense of what I have now, whatever you want. I don't give a like, I don't care. I just always find that is like, all right, babes, there might be a little bit of a problem with like the club you want to be in. If in order to like for you to be happy in that club, you gotta move in secret, or they're gonna kick your ass out of the club, or the majority of the people in the club. What I'm saying, I'm saying, in order for,
go ahead, man.
All right, if you kicked it by the rules of the majority of the average your faith, if you did what they was into, if you did things as they come, did not tweak it, did not modify it, you would be moving real up. You wouldn't like half the on this panel, is what I'm saying. Like, so like that to me is, I'm not, but that doesn't, again, I hope don't nobody think I kicking nobody back in. Listen, if you think about it like this, if y'all are correct, if there is heaven, you will be there, and obviously I will have the boot for talking all this anti-gospel stuffs. So you have that.
I don't even know if like everybody gonna be in heaven who be caping for Jesus. First of all, okay, this is my closing statement, because I feel like the people, my homegirls is gonna eat me up real bad. Like, wait, Herbie, what's the tea? One, let's be very clear. You can believe that something exists and not really fuck with that thing, or not really like that individual. I currently today, what time is it? It is currently June 25th, 8:16 p.m. Right now, I think that Jesus Christ is the God up in heaven, and I am not the biggest fan. I don't like that the Bible is homophobic, misogynistic, pro-slavery. I don't like that the Bible is, all the mean things, right? I am a victim of PTSD. See me as a victim, bitch. I'm going through something, okay?
I have a question about the supernatural nature of. Go ahead, Herbie. I'll let you finish. I didn't want to interrupt.
Right, because this is my PSA to my people. Just listen, y'all. I personally feel like I'm playing Jeopardy. I'm playing, like I said before, I'm playing Russian roulette. And I just feel like, also, I'm not certain if me just saying that, like, I believe in Jesus and I be praying, because that does give me catharsis when I pray for people when they're going through something and I ain't got the money to give it to them, but I can say a prayer. Yes, it does. So when I'm doing those things, worry about me. Worry about you. I believe that everybody has the right to do whatever they want to do with their life. I just personally am not. A lot of you girls are much stronger than me, and I'm looking directly in. Is this my camera? Use your common sense. I am not. At this present moment, at the age of 27, I'm not strong enough to walk away from something that I stopped going to church when I was 22. You know what I'm saying? Like I had a full boyfriend. I was having panic attack. I was having a panic attack in the car going to church, in church, literally like had to take medication. It was a lot, right? So there are limitations to every person. Everybody has their own individual limitations. I'm not caping for an institution that was brought to me by slavery, except I am a little bit. So again, keep me in your prayers. Hold your rose quartz close to your chest and charge it to my head, not my heart.
I wonder if it's my being raised Jehovah's Witness that got me like, no.
I was raised.
That's another thing.
My question for
because girl was alive.
To what Deshaun mentioned,
but
to what Deshaun mentioned about, I think it was the supernatural nature of Jesus. The one thing that brought up for me was, I have a question for people who are more historians than me, because I'm very much a research it and come back and tell you what I found out person. But like, when did Jesus turn into Superman? And do you think that is the do you think, or a magician, whatever you want to call him, and is that the sole pillar holding up your reluctance in Herbie's case from fully pulling away, for even from people who have thought about why they haven't pulled away? Is that the reason? Is it the reason that we hold up this person that definitely wasn't white as a superhero that's able to perform magic feats? Is that what it is? I've always been curious about that, because I'm talking to people who are religious. I'm no longer religious, but I'm curious from a historical standpoint.
I believe in a lot
I think
of things.
life is hard. People need to feel like they're going to be saved by a supernatural afterlife.
No, I know that. I believe in a lot of different things. In my church that I grew up at, being Haitian, people think that because we have a lot of cultural things even within the church that are seemingly, no, I wouldn't even say seemingly, that are not biblical. We got merges of what they would say voodoo within the church and our music, the things that we do. That's just how we do it. The things that we believe in, the things that we do. Why are you putting a string on? Why are you putting
do not associate me.
A string on a piece of, why are you putting a piece of string on a baby's head in the middle of church to make them stop having the hiccups? You know, it's little things like that. People might think, oh, that's hoodoo, that's whatever. We still incorporate those different type of things. Even spiritually, we still have where people honor their ancestors, they honor the dead. Biblically, that's not something that you should be doing, or all those things. Those are still, so I don't know. Like I said, it's all what you believe. People may call me crazy for the things that I believe in as a Haitian, you know, just remedies or those type of things. You just choose to believe what you believe in. I know people today that believe the trees, you know, move and talk and do those things. I don't look at them crazy.
Oh, they do that.
I believe
that's totally fine. Like, that's entirely fine.
That's their belief. That makes them happy. They ain't hurting nobody. Whatever the case may be. But I do know the institution as a whole not gonna fight y'all on that.
Yeah,
it's problematic.
The subjective belief thing has always been fine for me. It's the fact that, going back to the institution, it's forced on the rest of us. Like, we don't really get a choice. It was forced on us back then. It's being forced on us now. And it's more than religion. Like, to the point y'all were making earlier about religion being a business and Jesus not being religion, I think the modern manifestation of Jesus is a business. And I'm not going to debate it right now, but we probably don't even have enough time to really dig fully into that.
That's the tension of the mega church.
I don't like Christianity because I genuinely think it's kind of ass. I think I like, as far as listen, y'all beat me up.
Olay, you've been windmilling all night.
Y'all need to understand. I was raised, when I tell you the Bahamas is a constitutionally Christian nation, I mean, they pride themselves on that. Every institution, every school, every this, we have national Christianity exams. I had to be in religion class. Actually, you have no get it. Mrs. Toot and I want to fight her to this day. I remember the day asking her when she was talking about, everybody can go to hell if they don't believe in God. I was like, well, what about people who ain't even heard about this? You know what I mean? Who ain't even heard about you ever? And I remember she took me out the class, and that's when I realized you are not able to answer me. All your answers are faith. This is indoctrination. You cannot answer my questions. And more of it's like, if you describe something to me, if you describe a school of thought to me, and I don't like it, I don't like what you are describing. I don't like this environment. I don't want to be I don't opt in. And I never liked what they were selling me on. It's like, I remember the day I decided I've had enough of this. Like, as Joe, Bible study or Jehovah's Witness, whatever, Watchtower, the lady who was teaching me, when she was describing heaven to me, I was like, that is so ass.
Boring.
And that's how I always felt. Even like, you know that Biggie song, that Biggie Small song where he'd be like, when I die, I want to go to hell because I'm a piece of shit. It ain't hard to hell. It don't make sense going to heaven with the goodies. I was like, and it don't. I want to hang with no Christian. Like,
that's boring.
I don't. Like, what they're on. I don't like anytime somebody gets the paneling the Christian way and what you should be moving like and acting like. It's ass. It sounds ass. I don't like it.
Now you have that forced upon you in that way. I didn't grow up that way, and I'm grateful.
No. My mommy and
Jehovah's Witness at that. Sorry,
they around me crazy too. I want you to know. But please understand, I have a very religious sister right now.
But no, at the same time, it's like how you received God and how you were. You know, I had to leave it on my own terms, which I'm grateful for that I had that opportunity. I always say I had to leave my mama's Jesus and go get it for myself. And it may not look like anybody else's God, but it's mine. I hate the way it was presented to you. It was forced. You had to take a class, sis. I apologize for you against your will. And then Jehovah's Witness, where's the
I mean, like school, like regular school. You know what I mean? I feel
the reality is people know, like, these people, to Cam's initial question, it's like, and I'm going to be very real. I might include myself in people. Jesus, you listening? Look out. People, like, it's what we all know. And it's what we kind of, like, we've been saying in a roundabout way. And I think we might have said this already, but like, people don't love God for real. They're scared of going to hell. You don't love God for real. You're scared of going to hell. Heaven doesn't sound like fun, but if you have been indoctrinated effectively, because Christianity and all of its different denominations is very effective in indoctrination. If you've been indoctrinated effectively, then you believe that there's a binary afterlife. So it's like, yeah, this don't look like the turn up, club, but burning. Hell
doesn't make rational sense.
Realize that there was a place.
Doesn't. You heard of irrational fear?
I had to realize when I was growing up, there was this fear. There was this 100% fear that, oh my gosh, I was going to go to hell, because it was just the basic learning that I had. I was just going to go to hell because that's what it's teaching. There was hell or heaven, and that was it. When I went off to college, and there was parties, and there was
oh girl, you went to an HBCU.
I don't even like fictional. I don't even like fictional religious niggas.
But it was only that being Christian.
Did you watch Greenleaf?
Being Christian
and
being a Haitian girl was crazy. You didn't have no rules. I mean, you didn't have no rules. You didn't have no rights. Being a Haitian girl, nothing. So when I went off, I was more free. I was able to do that. I didn't care about going to heaven or hell at that time. But it was just when I was going through a lot, I liked believing in something. I liked that whole situation. I don't care what it would have been, but
we all like
it's like you need something.
I like it.
Like there's something that's gonna help you, save you out.
It helped me get through so much. The gospel music helped me get through a lot.
I can't stand.
I will never get rid of gospel music. I love gospel music.
I'm not talking about CCM. I'm not talking about contemporary Christian. I'm talking about the back in the day,
that old time religion.
Yes, the old choir.
Hell yeah.
I don't do the CCM. I don't do the
Please get into Deshaun and their music taste. Each time.
Those things helped me get through so many of the darkest times of my life. When I was searching for things, when I tried other things, it didn't work for me. So that's why this is just my choice with it. And then the way that I got to have my freedom, and I realized I don't got to do it like how these people are doing it. I don't. Even the guy that the person that I did the radio with at the time, he freed himself around that same time. He's actually a gay pastor. His name is Benjamin Evans.
Benjamin drag
Evans.
me.
And he's very, like, when we were working together on the radio back in Tallahassee in school, and he was so big on church and very churchy, and I had to tell him, come out. Jesus still gonna love you. You need to come out because he's gonna love you now. The whole gay pastor free, and that's his thing. And for people in the world, they will say, you can't be that, you can't do that, you can't whatever. But then, like, with the rules and things, he wouldn't exist. He wouldn't be able to do what he did. But he says the same thing that I say. This is literally what saved my life. This is what helped me get through things. It may not be the next person's thing, but I would never force that on them. And I'm sorry for your experience, Olay, because you had it forced.
I didn't have no bad experience. I'm fine. I'm sorry. Like, hey, don't feel sorry for me. I'm free.
The Jehovah's Witnesses were a little bit.
My parents was not, again, my parents is Jehovah's Witness, but my parents raised me to be Jehovah's Witness in the same way people tell their children that they're good, they're smart, whether or not it's true or not. Like, they say we're Jehovah's Witness, but we weren't. Like, my parents ain't OD religious people, but I live on a Constitution Christian nation. So it's around, but don't feel that. I don't have some like religiously traumatic experience. I just think religion is a vice that people do not analyze the way they analyze other vices because they think it's ordained by God and they think it's like inherently good.
Well, I think I think around this from like a kid's perspective. Y'all, they're teachers. But I really do think around like look, you hear it drop at least once every other episode. We out here. We just contextualizing shit. But in reality, though, like I think around even as a kid, like it was like I used to go to church with my mom as a kid, but I had realized probably by like the 7th grade, I said something don't make sense here. This ain't working for me. But my mom actually gave me the option of opting out. But I was in Bible school, vacation Bible school, all that stuff as a kid. My God is an awesome God. Like we did all of it. You feel me? But even in that child, we got it. But even in that moment, I had realized, I was like, oh, what my mom was actually trying to do was also like ascribe a set of values onto it. So it's interesting, like hearing like Rebecca's experience and Herbie's experience outside of here, because for me, it wasn't necessarily like the idea of going to heaven or hell. It was actually trying to teach me what was right or wrong. And I think a lot of folks don't know where to start with that kind of thing, especially depending on like upbringing and anything like that. So a lot of folks that I didn't know, like a lot of my closest friends, all super religious. I said, oh, y'all be going to church? That's different, but we here. But even in that moment, it taught me I think I was just also a nerdy kid. I was like, oh, this is a cool book. Let me see what I can learn from this book and the piece of literature that I believe like the Bible is. Because I was like, oh, this is a good piece of literature. I'd be interested to see like what I can pull from it. But when I used to explain to my family, like, oh, just as much as I learned from the Bible is what I learned from like James Baldwin and Go Tell It on a Mountain and all these and Zora Neale Hurston and all these other people. Because I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of different set of values of things that resonate with me. And here's what does not resonate with me. But I don't ever think for me, I was ever indoctrinated with this idea of like, oh, we're thinking around the consequence of life if you do not live a righteous life. I think around it more so of the sense of like, here's a base core of my values and what can I take from this that makes me feel like I can function like a decent human being. I learned religion doesn't necessarily work for me, and I don't know what I believe in, because it's more so like, I know when my pop is around, I feel his presence with me. So something about the ancestors, it don't feel like a guardian angel, but it feels like my ancestors are on a separate plane. I don't know what y'all call that. I don't know what that is, but I think about that a lot of times because I'm just like, oh, yeah, that too. But like being able to evoke my ancestors' names, being able to, this feels real Sankofa. Lord Jesus, Antoinette, save me. But it is real interesting to me on terms of like how we have this discussion and thinking around like how we were introduced to it and or indoctrinated with it. But like, I always looked at it as like, here's a set of base values that should feel right and wrong. And then as I get older, I can interrogate, like, contextually, this might be a little crazy because I said, did religion work with Black people? I don't know. It didn't. And
I love
thinking
that
about what it does
to church.
Right. But then also what we can do from an individual basis versus what the actual institution of itself actually represents. So I look at it more from like a developmental piece.
I'll say this, listen, and then I'm done.
Because
I love the idea that religion is a lot of our first introduction into value systems, into right and wrong. Got it. That's great. As long as the same way this country is the first place where a lot of us are born, we have to be able to look at religion, look at this country, understand that there's privilege here, there's lessons here, right? But we also have to examine the reality of the function of the thing, which is the function of religion, the function of the country, and just it's going back to Olay saying that the Bible is deeply connected and related to the Constitution, and that's all that I'm asking. If folks want to be Christian, I don't give a do you thug thistle, but please make sure that you're examining the thing in front of you, right? And I feel like Rebecca, Herbie, you two are the purest examples of folks examining, living in a way that feels right to you, and that love Jesus and call yourselves Christian. And I applaud that. I really, truly do. And I envy it because I want to have a home somewhere. And right now I feel like I'm floundering, but that's what I've chosen because I don't feel at home anywhere yet. So I love that for you. And I love the invitation into the space as well.
Stop what you're doing and listen up. You just watched a video on one of my channels, but the Olay verse is huge. And I want to tell you what everything is and how to find it. The Olay verse has 6 channels. On the YouTube homepage of any one of those channels, every single channel in the Olay verse is featured at the bottom of the page, so you can always easily find them. Okay? Remember I said that. Don't say I ain't tell you how to find it. Subscribe to my main channel, Olay, to find my Olay Productions, which are my long-form video essays and also all of my backlog of content. Subscribe to my second love child, Olay Pop, for my weekly video essays analyzing my favorite TV and movie shows and characters. Olay Pop also has its own Patreon where you get all of those videos uncensored. Subscribe to my channel, Olay Friends, for my podcast, Olay Friends. New episodes of Olay Friends come out every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to Olay and Chill for new episodes of my podcast, Olay and Chill, every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And also, both Olay and Friends and Olay and Chill are both available on streaming platforms like Spotify. Subscribe to Unlearning Bites if you want my takes, but you don't have an hour to spend. Subscribe to Unlearning Politics for my political analysis and my State of the Union type addresses on my show O Squared. And last but not least, subscribe to my Substack Unlearning for my written work.